Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a Plunder video 5 years in the making. A question pondered by theologists and scientists alike. Pharaohs and kings would kneel to know this knowledge. What is the highest possible medal achievable within Plunder? To begin this journey into the unknown, we're going to have to iron out a few kinks in advance. Firstly, the money change. Prior to Season 4 Reloaded, the cash had started acting a little unpredictable in overtime. Now, while I haven't got a large sample to go off of, there were instances where we were doing contractor and players were dropping $1 million in overtime with a lot of bags, and it was very strange. And I'm aware the game has been like this for some time now, but I'm asking you to cast your mind back to before Season 4. Contractor was still the dominant way of obtaining high-scoring games. We got 10 million with Contractor, for goodness sake, in Verdansk. But Season 4 changed that, and by Season 4 Reloaded, a patch went live to fix that. And the amount of money dropped in overtime changed everything. This flipped the concept of Plunder on its head, and we have a long road ahead of us on this record, and I will need to explain a few things. Primarily why you can't see the score bar, or our money, so you will have to bear with me. The overtime change lifted a 5-year cap of $199,500 dropped from a player in overtime when they died. It was never a fair or effective method. Executions in blood money, or the whole concept of blood money from Verdansk and Verdansk 1984, were redundant. And that was because the money was capped when they died. Now, executions were also supposed to pay out extra money, and technically speaking, if the person had no money in Plunder, then yes, it paid dividend to execute them, but if they had anything over $400,000, it was actually null and void to execute them. Ergo, executing Plunder players would have been for ego's sake only. Technically speaking, yeah, there is a second reason, and that is to take the king off the board for 30 seconds, and depending on who they were playing with, you'd be hoping to spawn them up north away from all the money, which would give you a chance to win. But to be clear, under the old system, having $1 million on you and dying meant that the killer got $199,500, and 300,000 would just disappear into the ether, and you would respawn with 500,000. It wasn't exactly a fair method. Now, this cap meant kills in overtime were useless, as you'd only get about 50% of the money, up to 200,000. And a team of looters could easily surpass that. Again, when overtime hit and cash is doubled, all cash should be doubled. This is something that appears on our screens, but for 5 years, it was only the ground loot that was doubled, and not the kill money. And this created a problem. A team of 4 players queuing into a game could end a 30-minute game with a recommended time to last of 20 minutes within 3 minutes. And they could run through that in overtime and get the game over and done with within 6 unimpeded. Now, while some would argue that the point is to win, and I might have found myself arguing this position at one point, sure, the developers did interviews and I covered them in a 2-part video years ago, highlighting how Plunder was a bridge the gap mode for the 20% who had expected that would want to win, and then 80% of players, or 80 players at the time, who would want a sandbox mode in Verdansk to play without an objective for up to 30 minutes. It's where Plunder shined, and it remained a primary mode, coincidentally the only mode right up until recently where there wasn't a queue time to get in, or at least not a long one in comparison to the Battle Royale modes. So it is worth kind of thinking about that. On that note though, it does raise a valid point. Over the hundreds of thousands of games that have taken place over the last 5 years, how many 6-minute games will the player base of 96 people who aren't trying to win but have fun tolerate to allow 4 to 8 people per lobby grind the leaderboard? Now at the moment, it's not even 3 wins a day to get into the top 100 in Plunder. The evidence is clear that people don't want to win, except for a small minority, and, you know, it used to be 70 to 100 wins per day to grind the old school Plunder leaderboard to keep up with the cash. We can all agree that the player base globally has tanked, with servers migrating and closing at a way more frequent rate than we have ever seen in previous years. Lobby syncs with teams in Plunder happen at a more frequent rate as they're thrown into the nearest server to fill to 100. And we've seen this way back in 1984 when New York would migrate down to Texas, but it's been happening at a way more frequent rate now. And it's also worth remembering that 1984 the player base was exacerbated with Verdansk. So where's this rambling leading to? The last 5 years of leaderboards have been protected by an overtime kill cap. So I'm saying this quite clearly now. Without it, KD would have become the most significant factor in placement, with looters with low KDs who use AFKs to pad their stats before posting them on social media, yes, I'm calling you out, would have been considerably less desirable to play with. Who, as a winning team and as somebody who's been on one of them and sounds quite cocky at the moment, wants a team of looters who cannot kill to grind the leaderboard based on cash collected. Low KD equals loss of cash would have equal to loss of leaderboard place. Because of how the money is functioning at the moment, people who die over and over again or who can merely loot would not have been usable in getting onto the leaderboard. Now I am, to be clear, talking about the old leaderboard. I haven't interacted with everybody on the new leaderboard. I'm not making assertions about them, just the people I have interacted with that's on the new leaderboard, to be absolutely clear. So it's interesting that the most noise I have heard from people who don't like the changes we're getting back on script are those with a high win ratio and a low KD. There's a correlation there in that leaderboard players believe they are entitled to win and will start wars over who plays with who, even to this day when COVID is long gone. It is shameful behaviour and one of the reasons that I don't engage with the community anymore. The notion that you can win lots of games of Plunder and that somehow makes you good at Call of Duty has created some of the most violent toxic egos that, wouldn't survive outside of minimal skill-based matchmaking box opening. I said it. And it's that same entitlement to winning that has resulted in many quitting for not being able to win every game anymore, and those remaining consistently complaining. And to a degree, listen, I understand that. I love winning. Plunder makes you want to win. And then you play other game modes, and I tell you something, when you lose and 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 lose, and then you eventually get used to losing, it then encourages you to get better and encourages you to try see win at the end of your Resurgence games or your Battle Royale games or your multiplayer games or whatever other thing you are playing. To be complacent in Call of Duty just results in your overall skill set diminishing. And the way I used to treat COD at one point when I thought I was good at it was to assume I was good at it, and therefore I didn't need to practice, I didn't need to make use of anything that the game was giving us in way of new tools. And guess what happened when I moved outside of PlunderRazor got his ass slapped. So now I make use of everything new that comes into the game, and I actually try to be a good player and play all of the different modes. Now, to be clear, I've already said it, but my script says this is what I have to say. No one is entitled to win a game mode 100% of the time, especially when the claim to winning is hitting square and rotating your analog for 18 hours a day to post online. Do better. So the change, dun dun dun! My god, how long have we filled? 8 minutes in, 17 minutes to go, guys. The overtime cap in regular time is lifted at a 100% drop rate, 50% cash loss on death rate. You lose half your cash, the enemy gets that half, plus that half again for killing you. It is a reward for killing you. It is a reward to encourage fighting, and it's technically speaking how it should have functioned all the way back in Payback. That is the original name for Plunder. When games used to end with people fighting at pigs, and the game even ended when you just hit 1 million. How we have changed since then with what's coming up at the end of this video. So, similar to Contractor, when blood money overtime hits, the money is doubled. You will still lose 50%, the enemy still gets 100%, but it's blood money, so that's doubled for the enemy. I'm not explaining it any clearer than that, take from it what you will, but it is exactly as Contractor functioned. This has meant that anyone from a solo to a quad can win a game. And that money goes all the way up to 4 million. Yes, it is still capped, but if it wasn't capped within another 10 deaths, that 4 million would become over $1 billion on a player, and that would probably crash the lobby. So 4 million is good for me. Along with the 4 million cap, money up to that value now spawns in one bag, as opposed to a geyser of money erupting from the ground. I suspect that may have played a factor in it as well being patched, as every game does have a certain amount of assets it can hold at any one time to be stable. Box, plates, guns, money, you name it. When people begin dying in overtime and quitting, they were spawning 20 bags of cash, which is messy and causes instability. Sentry gun, Modern Warfare, zombies, me and headshot on a football field, and people disconnecting. I'm looking at you. So this change has consolidated the bags, and it has raised the cap to $4 million. It also meant looting in areas completely devoid of people served no purpose, as it's a guaranteed loss in overtime, forcing engagements to get the win. With all of that out of the way, now we can kindly get into why we are here. To be clear, this isn't a world record for most cash in Verdansk 2.0 video. With the way the multiplier works and the amount of plunder games that happen, scores above 30 and 40 million potentially have happened, and considering we've had one in excess of $33 million, I'm not interested in that, but we know it's out there, and we also know, for anyone who's going to complain at the end of this video belonging to the plunder community, that the African community have actually gotten in excess of $25 million themselves. So that's kind of awkward for you guys, isn't it? That leaderboard's going to look really interesting next year. Since Caldera and the top secret contracts, we have wanted to know what the maximum medal in Plunder was. We thought we knew back then, settling for the white number for total team cash is an indicator of 20 million and what had been achieved, and even in Urzikstan, using that same principle applied for the signal intels to get 32 million using the mathematical system. But time and time again, no matter what the score, the medal was never correct. But along came Verdansk 2.0. And 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. What was the limit that you could go? But with every test that we did, we would encounter a problem. So many, in fact, that it took us over 3 bloody months of testing and running a 4.3 KD into the ground in the name of science and answers that would make Zeus fall to his knees before Razor. Come hell, no high water, we were going to find out what the maximum medal in Plunder actually could be. Now, I also want to add a note here that this is a minimum maximum. To set this up requires a lot of steps, and maths, and knowledge, and a whiteboard in advance. And one of the things is the bank money. If a person banked with 4 million, the outcome to this medal would be different. However, that is a theoretical situation. One that you would actually need an old blackboard in a university that would have a sum on it, and it could never be solved. It's that type of thing. Because theoretically, they would need to be on the maximum amount of money that would be available prior to banking, ergo $1 away from banking, and would also need to have the maximum amount of money to pick up to go in to do that to begin with, which again is impossible to do. So, you have to take a concession somewhere on what we're actually expecting to achieve within this test. And for me, hitting a number that couldn't regularly be achieved by any other means was sufficient. So this is a minimum maximum, while the theoretical maximum exists solely inside the confines of Razor's head. So why the black bar? Well, a magician doesn't like to give away his secrets. There is an element of magic to this, to see a system played out so stupidly, but used to achieve something otherwise impossible. It poses the age-old theory of doing wrong to do right. What I've put together over the last couple of months to get to the point takes a lot of maths. A lot of questioning, wrong answers, half right, half wrong equations, fractions, percentages, predictions, backup plans, and accepting when you're actually wrong to begin with, along with communicating with other people and arguing with them and having to go against what they say and then them having to go against what you say to get to where we are. It's something I've enjoyed because it has had an end goal, the medal. There has been a reason to actually log on and play this game mode that hasn't evolved over 5 years. It's actually devolved in some regards. So as we go along in this jolly adventure, with no moderators or official oversight to condemn me, I've taken it to hide the score until the very end, so as not to encourage anyone to try and copy, as has previously happened in Al-Mazrah. You are more than welcome to try it, but copying others' work is naughty, and we can't have nice things in this world, so unfortunately all of us have to suffer. So, the method that I mentioned, the systems. Suicide. I know, bad word. Please, nobody ever do that. We all need to live and play our part in life in some way, shape, or form. And I know that doesn't seem like it's true, but then one day you might just have one instance in your entire life that changes somebody else's life, and then it might change your life. It might make things better. Right. I would say cue the MASH theme song here, but I have a feeling not everybody subscribed to this channel who actually even makes it this far into the video would even be aware of that. But you should check the ratings for the final episode of MASH. Amazing TV series. Back in 1984, we were determined to hit a 5 million trios and a 6 million no bunker. We knew the money wasn't physically on the map, but it was an impossible score, technically. But suicide was the answer in Call of Duty. If you drop money before overtime and you bank and you completed a most wanted and you grabbed the money and got into a chopper, you were instantly on 2.7 million. It was a well-established method that I had coined for those scores. After we lost the bunkers, it was not a fun time. We hit 5 million in trios for the record. I mentioned it earlier, but I feel like I should mention it again. So suicide for this version of Verdansk wasn't anything new. But the idea didn't come to mind until I grabbed my own money after being murdered once, and it was way more than I dropped, and oh, that seed was planted, and I'm a gardener. It grew fast. The premise is also simple, really. Kill yourself and get the maximum score. I had 5 other people who will say this is arguably the worst thing they've done because of how finicky it is. To be clear on what we're doing, my maths was wrong by even $1, or an armor plate, as has happened. The run's over. 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 25 minutes, the run's over. You have to maximize everything. Everything. In the process of doing this, I will share a little beautiful piece of trivia. The maximum cash in Verdansk 2.0 is a very, very familiar number. It's been in the background for 5 years. As it turns out, in Verdansk 2019, max cash per person was 1/8 of the total max cash available now. Meaning a team back then could have looted 50% of the total cash back in the day. And it also meant that we now know that the OG medal for Verdansk would have been somewhere in the region of 7.6, I think, as back then ballooning an over team was not beneficial to records. In Caldera, after they removed max cash, we found out that max caches were 50% of total max cash, meaning we did technically get the maximum medal back in the day under the golden plunder rule set, but again, without anything to do with anything else. I know. Finally, for this rendition, max cash is max cash. Once the team hits it, it stops counting. Which it's... well, no, it's... yeah. Our piggy friend also has a limit. A very annoying limit. And it's not very fond of being overfed. Don't overfeed your pig. It eats everything. And it doesn't give anything back. Other than a foul smell and people being angry, being shot, dying on the pig to the enemy team, losing a lot of money. Anyway, with an ever-growing list of stuff to remember and complete in every single game, the time has come to get to the point. This has stretched out a long, long while, and it's something I need to get off Razor's chest. There is a vocal aspect of the Plunder community that doesn't like me, and I them. You see, I don't have time for players who after 5 years still chase boxes for an entire year. I've nuked Al-Mazrah in the desert with hellfire raining around me while I hide behind the ruins of building as Headshot opens fire with $100,000 worth of fucking kill streaks that he's bought to protect us to drop the nuke that we did back in the day. I have nuked Rebirth Island and seen some of the most incredible things on that map that you will ever see in one's life. I have done Crimson in ranked because I couldn't be arsed putting in the rest of the time to get to Iridescent. I have bombed through every 100% that's been available that hasn't glitched out in the last 4 years. I've been first in the world to hit max rank more times than I can count in Modern Warfare 2 and 3, and I still have the second most amount of combined wins in Plunder from every iteration of the game, and I managed to get the top 5 in the world for kills in the original 3 years of this game while maintaining the wins leaderboard position. Allow that all to sink in just for one moment, because there is a reason that we're saying this. Now, I could leave it there, but I'm not. With all that said, we're also the guys who pulled 5.9 million in OG Verdansk when people couldn't even fathom what a 6 looks like. We were the guys who pushed over 5 without bunkers in 84 and ran those 300 to 350 games that hit a 5 million in trios. Again, at a time when people thought that it wasn't possible. We've railroaded every team within the community with people backing out of lobbies to escape losing to us. We never backed down. And we have hundreds of clips and screenshots of Plunder players dying to our hands with their names popping up on the left-hand side of the screen when they left the lobby. And again, I am referencing the old leaderboard players, not the new ones if any of them take grievance. We broke the boundaries within Caldera and Golden Plunder, hitting over 20 million, and we even got the first 6 million quads back-to-back in Caldera in a one night only type of way. We dedicated hundreds of hours to reclaiming the highest score on Mazra, and we took the Urzikstan to an unimaginable height with a 32 million contract game and a 12 million giant bunker game. And now here we are again in Verdansk. You see, I mention all of the above not for the ego as it may seem, but merely instead of getting into fleet fucking rolling arguments with Plunder community who feel that they're better than I and the people I play with because of our methods. They've locked themselves into an echo chamber of an online community forum. And it's taken me 3 paragraphs to write out the list of achievements I've done within this game, which is something that they can never, ever do. Because you're not Razor, you're not me, and you're not the guy, we're moving away from the script now, who was able to put together the masterpiece that's about to unfold before you. But I want to point in as well, just remove me from it, because I always say that I'm interested in what the maximum score on Plunder is and what the maximum medals could be. And my case in point is this game right here. It's not for the ego that I list all those accomplishments, but my god, how sad it would be if we hadn't done that. If I hadn't been a slave driver and a wanker to every single person that has played and done leaderboards with me to get to the point where we can list those achievements. Because that means that those scores wouldn't exist and those stories wouldn't exist, and we wouldn't know what the maximum amount of things you could do is. We'd have none of this information. Somebody has to go and get that information. Somebody in every game mode has to go and do this stuff to try and find these things out. They always end up hated. It is what it is. And for a long, long time, I have been attempting to keep myself as friendly as I could, especially when it came to releasing videos, so that there was no toxicity put into them. But damn it, I worked my ass off for this one. I worked my fucking ass off, and I'm proud to be able to say we worked out what it took to get a medal that couldn't be done in Plunder without doing what we did. We created something that had to be done to get this. You are welcome to try and do it by any other means, but it will not happen. We love the concept of Plunder, the memories and the people that we have met, but we're not interested in ending games fast. We just want to know knowledge. I'm signing off. We'll let this one end and play out. You'll see the scoreboard in a second. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, FontainesRazor presents the highest medal in Plunder history.
Jeez, I'm not going to have time to die and come back in. I won't hit the ground. I'd have to get you. Oh, initial dead. You won't have time to run outside. We have to look at this 4-9. Oh, so hang on. That's alright. 4-9, 6-5, 4, 6-5.